is the romantic compatibility between a Taurus and a Virgo. So both Taurus and Virgos are earth signs. So in that way, they really relate to one another and it helps them see one another's perspective a lot easier when they have the same element. So as earth signs, both Taurus and Virgo are very grounded, very realistic and down to earth. They're also very dedicated and they're really willing to put in the work when it comes to anything, especially the relationship. So these are two signs who really enjoy putting in the work and putting in the effort into this relationship in order to keep it going. This is the type of relationship that moves very slowly, especially in the beginning. It takes a while for the pair to really get things off the ground. It's just very slow and gradual moving, but it's very slow and steady. So there's a very high potential for commitment with earth signs. Once they really establish routine and once the relationship is fully off the ground, it usually just keeps on going, and it's hard for two earth signs to part ways after that. They both become very grounded in the relationship, and there's really, you don't have to worry about boredom when it comes to earth signs because they like stability and they like to know that they're feeling safe and grounded. So earth signs, when it comes to conflict, they're not really ones to yell at each other or get too dramatic or anything, but of course there will be conflict in any relationship. So earth signs can get very stubborn with one another. So a Taurus and a Virgo can definitely become really stubborn with one another. So it's basically you either see my side or you don't. So they might sort of argue over and over about the same thing. It won't be like explosive or anything, and it won't be like vicious at all. But they sort of do have the tendency to kind of fight over the same thing over and over because there's really no budging when it comes to stubbornness. These are two very stubborn signs. So Taurus is a fixed sign, which makes them even more stubborn, whereas Virgo is a mutable sign, so that makes them a little bit more relaxed than the Taurus. So the Virgo is a little bit more like go with the flow. If it's meant to be, it'll be. If not, it's okay. Virgo still needs like grounding energy and they want to feel secure, but they definitely have an easier time just like kind of going along with it, and they're definitely slightly less stubborn than the Taurus, who is extremely stubborn. Once the Taurus is fixated on something, there's just like tunnel vision. Like there's no stopping them. The Taurus just they get their eye on something and there's no distraction at all. So once a Taurus is committed to their Virgo, they are very focused on their Virgo and they're willing to try over and over again until they can't try anymore just to make it work. A Virgo is going to, they definitely still have that stubborn energy, but at the same time, being a mutable sign, they're definitely much more relaxed. And so the Taurus is more likely to be like the leader of the relationship and sort of take control and decide where things are going and the rate of the relationship. Whereas the Virgo is very like accepting and definitely much more open-minded too. And it will kind of just go along with whatever the Taurus says for the most part. So when it comes to planets, Taurus is ruled by the loving Venus, which is very sweet, kind, strong, feminine energy too. It also makes them very receptive too. So Virgo, on the other hand, is ruled by Mercury, which is all about communication and expressing yourself to one another and talking it out. So when it comes to initiating conversation, Virgo is more the one that's like more likely to say, like, I think we should have this important conversation, whereas the Taurus will sort of like, they're very loving, but communication is not always their thing. That's more the Virgo. The Virgo is definitely like the one who's sort of talking about things and bringing up issues that need to be discussed. And the Virgo comes with this like a little bit more of like an intellectual type of vibe, whereas the Taurus is a little bit more emotional and a little bit more like in their feelings. And so the Taurus might sort of hide their emotions, but as long as they feel safe, a Virgo can bring out their emotions and actually get them to talk about it. That's very important for the Virgo, that there's strong communication between one another. So when it comes to the houses, Taurus is ruled by the second house of duality and possessions. So the physical world is very important to the Taurus. They love food, they love gifts, they love money. So they're really focused on like all the physical pleasures. Whereas Virgo is the sixth house. So this is the house of health. So the Virgo just always makes healthy choices. So sometimes this can be conflicting because the Taurus can get a little bit money hungry. The Taurus can like literally overeat because Taurus usually loves food. So the Virgo is there to sort of guide them to make healthier choices and sort of like, of course, like not let them overindulge a little too much in the physical world as they tend to do. Taurus can also be kind of lazy too. They kind of rather just like hang out on the couch all day, whereas Virgo is more likely to be like, let's go out for a run, like let's take care of our bodies. So Virgo really encourages those healthy habits and keeps the Taurus in shape and really motivates their Taurus to just be healthy, both physically and mentally. Whereas the Taurus is like all about, oh yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I think that explains it. So when it comes to symbols, Taurus is symbolized by the bull. So again, we have the stubbornness coming in. So Taurus will just like ram into a door, and if that door doesn't open, if it doesn't even budge, the Taurus will just go at it again and again and again and again, and like they'll just get so fixated on something, whether it's a goal they're trying to accomplish or whether it's an argument and it's a point they're trying to make. They'll just go over it again and again and again. And so the Virgo, on the other hand, is symbolized as the Virgin. So this symbol is a little bit misunderstood in modern times. So by the Virgin, this really means like an unmarried woman. It really has nothing to do with like her sexual status or anything. So what this basically means is that the Virgo is very independent. Obviously doesn't have to be a woman. But you know, like in olden times, it was a little bit more impressive or controversial for a woman to be unmarried because, you know, it's always thought of as the man who's supposed to supply everything. And, you know, it was more acceptable for the man to be unmarried. So to think of a virgin, to think of an unmarried woman, it takes a lot of independence. It takes a lot of self-esteem and confidence in yourself. So Virgo just comes in with this very independent energy. So in that way, when the Taurus is really fixated on something, the Virgo is sort of strong enough and independent enough to kind of give them their space and let them do what they need to do. Whenever there's a conflict and there's just so much stubbornness, the Virgo is more likely to sort of take that space and walk away and like let the Taurus sort of like cool down. Yeah, and it's a great dynamic because the Virgo really doesn't need The Taurus, ultimately, the Virgo is just so independent and um, yeah, but it's not like this is a when a Virgo comes in a relationship, you know that they really want you, and it's not just out of desperation or neediness. It's like because they're choosing to be with you. Um, so yeah, and another great thing too is that with Taurus being all about like the physical pleasures, sometimes a Taurus tends to have a lot of money, or they might have a lot of great cooking skills, or they might be really good with like the physical stuff in the bedroom. So they might get worried that people use them for that. But Taurus doesn't have to worry about Virgo using them for anything, for their money, their social status, whatever, because a Virgo is like they can take care of themselves. Like they don't need the Taurus to shower them with gifts. Or shower them with food or whatever, or even praise, which is great because the Taurus is like, all right, if you don't want all this, then that's more for me. So it works out in that way. And yeah, the chemistry is good. As earth signs, they might be a little slower to get into the bedroom, but once they do, these are two people who like to sort of be in an established relationship. Before they move it to the physical. And once they are like in the bedroom, they sort of get into habit. So, you know, whereas other signs might find their might find them kind of boring. Taurus and Virgo are happy to be in their routine. They'll do like the same positions over and over again, and they're fine with that. Like that makes them happy. Um, you know, maybe they're not really ones to like spice things up, but they're perfectly happy with that. Like, if they know something works for them, then they're gonna stick with that. And they're like, why try other things if I know this works for me, you know? Like, so yeah, there's a lot of routine in the bedroom, but that's a good thing for them because they like routine, or you like routine. So that's all I have. So thank you for watching, and be sure to check out your other signs too. There's sun, moon, and rising if you resonate with that, and then also your Venus.